Hello, and welcome to Culture in Between, a podcast that explores the unique experiences of people who have grown up in a culture outside of their parents' culture. We are your hosts, Alyssa and Brianna, and on today's episode, we are excited to be joined by Chris, whose parents are from the Philippines. Chris, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me, Alyssa and Brianna. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Do you mind just giving a brief introduction to yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Chris. It's kind of weird because I usually do like a YouTube intro, but so I'm a solo app developer and I basically code apps. I live and breathe it. I love development and I make YouTube videos teaching others how to do it.
Nice. And Aloha, is that like your main company? I feel like I've seen, is that, I know you do the YouTube stuff, but is that kind of your main company? Okay,
Yeah. So
gotcha.
I don't really talk about it on YouTube that often,
Yeah,
but that's actually what I do like full time. So I
yeah.
started this company a long time ago and
Uh-huh.
that's pays the bills. I've been working on that. And so all the solo stuff, that's just kind of like on the side for fun, like a hobby.
Awesome. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so, yeah, obviously, Chris is here to talk about his Filipino background. So, can you tell us, Chris, where in the Philippines your parents are from and where you grew up?
Yeah. So both my parents are from Manila. I wish I could tell you guys like more specifically like where they're from in Manila because they've told me a couple times, but they've also said like a couple different cities. So I'm like not even sure anymore. But they're both from Manila, and then I grew up in Dallas, Texas. So that's where I'm at
Okay.
right now. But I lived in a bunch of different cities in the U.S. Not
Mhm.
really. I haven't lived anywhere outside of the U.S. But grew up in Dallas, and then I decided to come back here over the last like two. I think like 2 3 years ago, I came back.
Hmm. Do you know, does Dallas have a big Filipino community or anything? Or like
No,
what brought them to Dallas? I'm just kind of curious. That's
no,
not
no,
a place I hear.
it really doesn't have a big community, and I
Mhm.
think that definitely I think had some impact on like I think we'll
Mm.
probably talk about
Yeah.
like in deeper questions, but no, there really isn't that big of a community here.
Okay.
And as I went to other cities, I think that became more apparent to me when I like went
Mhm.
to even like going to shockingly like I went to school in Nashville, and I was like, wait, there's actually like a bigger community here. It's surprising.
Really?
And then obviously you go to LA or you go to Houston, I'm like, oh wait, there's like a ton of Filipinos here.
Uh-huh.
Uh, no, not too much in Dallas.
Okay. Yeah, because uh, Texas is not a place I hear many
Mhm.
immigrants
Well,
going to.
Houston
Well, I guess
apparently is
yeah,
pretty
Houston I
big,
hear, but
but
not
other
that.
than that, no.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, yeah, because our parents went to this typical like New York, up
Yeah,
north there.
yeah.
But sorry, I
Houston
didn't mean to cut you.
Houston's the big one. It's, like, to the point where, like, I think when we wanted, like, specific Filipino food, we would literally do, like, a 5, 6-hour road trip just to go to Houston. That's where all the
Wow.
restaurants are, but there's, like, nothing in Dallas, and I think, like, every time a Filipino restaurant would open, there's just, like, such a little community that it would kind of
Mm,
go down after, like, 6 months usually, which is sad. Um,
yeah.
I think there's only, like, maybe now, like, 1 or 2 Filipino restaurants even in Dallas, like, today at the moment.
Mm.
Huh. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll definitely get into food
Yeah,
near the
yeah.
end for sure. We usually ask some questions about that, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now I'm kind of curious. Like, was that isolating at all? Like, not having that Filipino community, or was it like you didn't notice it until you went to other places?
Definitely the second. I think I just didn't notice it.
Mhm.
Um, just because, yeah, I like that's all I knew. Like even like the high school I went to, I think it's kind of crazy, but it was like a it was like an all boys like Catholic school, and it was
Oh,
like
okay.
really small. Like the graduating class was like 40 people, which I thought that was normal and like big. And then I started like as I got older, like deeper in high
Mhm.
school, I was like, wait, your high school has like 1,000 people? Like that's crazy. But because of that, it was so small. I think I was like one of maybe for the entire high school, like the entire high school, I think I was one of like four Asian people, like
Hmm.
in the entire school. But I think because that's all I was exposed to, that was
Yeah.
so normal. So like, I didn't even notice that there was such a
Mhm.
small community. It wasn't until I went to college when I realized, oh wait, no, this was actually like very different. Like this was this was not a normal thing. Like
Uh-huh.
usually people are exposed more to their culture. So that was something that I did have to figure out, I think, during college. And my
Interesting.
brother, he went to a high school that was a little bit more diverse. And it was interesting because seeing him grow up, he's like way, way younger. I think like maybe 6 or 7 years younger. I got to in real time see him come to that realization like way, way earlier.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that was it was. I think it wasn't isolating until I realized it, like, later.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, I guess if your normal is like that small, like hearing for graduating class of 40 is like blows my mind because I don't think I've ever lived. My graduating class was like
Oh my
700 and
gosh, her
something.
Wow,
graduation was like 5 hours long.
gosh,
Yeah,
yeah,
so like it's like crazy. But I was like, oh, that must be kind of nice because I guess everybody knows each other, kind of thing,
yeah.
maybe. Um, but that's really interesting to think that like, yeah. But I guess if you just don't know, I don't know.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
kind of an interesting experience. We're in Nashville. I'm just curious. Or
Yeah,
where did you go to school in Nashville?
yeah,
Just
so
kind
I
of
went
curious.
to, Vanderbilt University, and
Nice. Okay. All
so
right. Great school. I went to Belmont for like 2 years, so I'm
oh,
familiar
really?
with that area.
You went to Belmont for
Yeah.
2?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
When, I don't know if we can cut it out if it's, like, too
Yeah.
detailed,
No, you're good. You're good.
but, like, yeah, when did you, go to Belmont?
I was there, let's see, 2009 through like 2011 was
Okay,
about when I was there. Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
I was there, like, a couple years after, but,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's so wow, that's okay, that's a small
Small
world. Yeah,
world.
I was
Yeah.
living
Yeah.
at
It's
Belmont campus, like, I think, like, maybe, like, once a month or something because I had a
oh,
bunch of
okay, cool.
Wow.
You had some friends there. Yeah. It's a
yeah,
cool place. I was doing like music stuff
okay,
at
Oh,
first
audio
and so yeah,
engineering.
audio engineering. I played saxophone a little bit, but then I was kind of like, when I majored in computer science, I kind of was like, all right, I got to save some money because private
okay,
schools
okay.
is expensive.
Yeah, Belmont's
Um,
very expensive. I was, like,
yeah.
so shocked when I saw, like, how much Belmont costs, but
Yeah.
very good for music though, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. But Vanderbilt's a great school. So,
Yeah,
amazing.
it was very, yeah, it was very, very good, very fun time.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, but going back
Okay,
to
yeah.
what you were saying about how I don't know, I've heard other people say that like, yeah, like you don't realize something's different until like you're
Yeah,
in a different place and then you're like, "Oh, wait, this other people like did have community and all that." But another thing that I've heard sometimes is that when you grow up in a place that like maybe doesn't have a big Asian
mhm,
community or whatever community you're a part of, sometimes as a kid it makes you kind of want to like not distance yourself from your culture, but just like fit in more.
Mm,
Like, did you feel
yeah.
that at all?
I I think I de so I think that was something I didn't understand until I went to college, but,
mm,
I didn't realize that I 100% was doing that,
Mhm.
like,
mm,
100%, and also, I didn't realize it at the time, but, I think my parents were also trying to kind of purposely do this as
Oh,
well. So, both my parents came from the Philippines, and, so my dad's a doctor here in the US,
mm,
but he, like, they both, like and my mom, when she came to the US, was a nurse, but now she's just, like, kinda helping out my dad with his private practice right now.
mhm.
But they both came from the Philippines, super poor, like, super
Oh,
poor, like, it was I have absolutely no idea how they did that. I have no idea how he became a doctor, it, like, makes no sense to me, but I do distinctly remember that, like, I don't think they were really purposely trying to do it, but
mhm,
looking back at it, I think they were. I think they were trying to really force us to fit in with, like, the American culture, like, really here
mhm,
because when I listen back to some of the stories they were telling us, they would always, like, tell us how, like, they had to kinda do that to fit in, especially when
mm,
you're going into, like, medicine, and I think my
yeah.
dad was like, "Yeah, I had to, like, lose the accent really quick, like, because people wouldn't take me seriously." Like, when he because he's doing, like, neurology, and he said it's, like, a field where everyone is super old, everyone is super white, it's
Yeah.
like, to get that much respect, like, you had to kind of
Hmm,
fit in there. I think same thing with my mom, like, being a nurse, I feel like she was probably around a lot of other Filipinos because there's a lot of Filipino nurses, like that's just a thing. But I do think though that to fit in with like the just the I guess like the hospitals and just kind of to
mhm,
play that game, like that's kind of what I was hearing from them.
gotcha.
They kept telling us, and again I seriously don't blame them at all for this, like especially looking back, but they would tell us to do certain things I distinctly remember I think I think they low key did not want us to learn Tagalog, like the Filipino language, because
Mhm,
they really wanted us to be extremely good at English. I remember my mom would like really make sure that her like Filipino accent did not come out in certain
mhm,
situations.
Mm.
She got really good at like turning it on and turning it off.
hmm,
And and
mhm,
I didn't think much of it at the time, but then looking back, I realized like they definitely did that so they can fit in better, like
mhm,
themselves. And I think they did kind of push that on us. Um, Personally, I didn't find a problem with it because again, I didn't know. Like I had no
yeah.
idea they were doing that. Looking back when I went to college, I was like, okay, that's kind of messed up that they did that. I could tell though that my brother, who when he was in like high school, middle school, he again like he saw this a little earlier. He kind
Mm-hmm.
of was like a little upset with them about that. Like he was like, "Why are you not exposing us to the culture?" Like so
Mm-hmm.
he kind of went a little more with this identity crisis. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, I was like super ignorant, lived in bliss. I like had no idea problem. So I didn't bring it up with them, but so I did have to talk to him to like, because he was kind of frustrated with them, like, why didn't you teach us Tagalog? Why didn't you like tell us
Yeah.
culture? And I explained to him like, dude, you don't understand. Like they probably didn't even realize they were doing that, but like
Yeah.
this was the situation. Like it's different. Like they weren't as accepting. Like right now, like it'd be crazy if someone made fun of your accent like while you're
Right.
talking like now, but back then like
Yeah.
you had to fit in, especially like if you want to like succeed in a hospital or you wanted to play that game.
Mm.
So I think when I explained it to him, he kind of like let up on them and realized, okay, this wasn't on purpose. I think they
Mm-hmm.
like, and I can tell also, I think like now, my parents are kind of like slightly regretting that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can tell they kind of wish that they did expose us more. Like they don't really directly say like, oh, we wish we taught you Tagalog, but like I think they kind of are like, oh man, like I can
Mm-hmm.
tell that they're beating themselves up a little bit for not exposing us to that,
Mm-hmm.
because the world is more accepting now, and I think they're
Yeah.
realizing like it's like that was something that they probably, it's just harder now that we're older to like to kind of gain that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot the original question, but like that
No,
was
you're good. That
No,
was a
that was
great.
good.
That
That was
was you
yeah.
actually. Gosh, you hit on a lot of things that I was going to ask you. So I'm going to try and recap. So I was going to ask you. I'm actually familiar with Tagalog. I was going to ask you if you speak Tagalog. So
yeah,
you
yeah,
answered that no. But and what was I going to say? I mean, it's always so sad to hear a little bit that like immigrants feel like they have to assimilate. And I mean,
Not yeah.
not it's bad to assimilate per se, but like that hiding the accents,
yeah,
and all these things we and stuff. I do find that my mom and dad
Mhm.
sometimes will cover up their accents a little bit when they're around like people they know aren't
yeah,
Jamaican and all that. And I'm like, Mom, why? And it's like, whatever. But
yeah.
and man, so many interesting things okay. So a few questions I have is what age okay, let me start over. Did your parents meet in the Philippines and then come over together, or was it like kind of a separate kind
It
of
was separate. They actually
okay.
met in Dallas. So
Okay.
apparently they both came completely separately, and then I think they met. I think just because like he's a doctor, she was a nurse, not in the hospital, but they just met
Uh-huh.
through mutual connections. I think
Okay.
kind of crazy to me. I'm like, how like what are the
Yeah.
chances? Like there's like such small like there's like very no Filipinos here to begin with. Like how is
Yeah.
it that you two just like
They're like,
appeared here?
"Another one." They
Yeah, so
identified each other.
that might be why. Like that maybe that's why. So they like stuck out so hard there. But, yeah, no, they came separately though.
Okay, I mean, same with our parents.
Hmm.
And then I just think it's funny that you're like, yeah, ignorance is bliss kind of
Yeah,
thing. Like your brother and you had very,
yeah, yeah,
vastly different kind of experiences. But that's cool that you've been able to, I guess, help him grapple with that a bit
Yeah.
yeah.
and not be, upset and understanding, your parents' vantage point there. Was your dad a practicing doctor in the Philippines before he immigrated here?
I think he I think he either, I don't think he was. I think he did
Okay,
his residency here. So
gotcha.
he I think finished med school in the Philippines, and
Hmm.
then he ended up yeah, I think doing residency here because I think
Okay.
he was telling me I think he had to apply to like so many different places to like get accepted here. And it was also crazy because he told me like this was him bashing me when I was doing college applications because I was complaining about like I have so many college applications to do, and he was telling me like I'd apply to like 1,000 residency programs. Also, we didn't have the internet, so I had to handwrite, and also I couldn't afford paper. And I was like, okay, you know what? I don't feel that bad anymore. But yeah,
Oh man.
yeah. So I don't think he was practicing there.
Okay.
I think he did the residency here and got accepted here. Um,
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I'm always curious about that because I know my mom was a practicing pharmacist in Jamaica before she came to the states, and but a lot of times what happens, when you do come to the states, a lot of times even though you've been working professionally, things credits don't transfer and all that, and you kind of have to start over. And she
mhm.
had to go to school here in New York, so I was just curious if that was a situation he went to. But I do know that a lot of immigrants do kind of come over here for residency as well. And yeah, I have I could go on, but go ahead. Do you have anything?
Oh, I just wanted to know, like, yeah, like you said, since you grew up with your parents kind of either subconsciously or consciously kind of like trying to not be too Filipino, and
Yeah.
um, does have now that you're older, like have you kind of been trying to learn more about the
Hmm.
culture and learn, yeah,
Yeah.
just be
I think
learn more about it?
definitely for sure, like, at least a little bit more.
Hmm.
But if I'm like really, really honest with myself, I can tell that it's definitely not to like the extent of my brother, for example.
Hmm.
'Cause that was something I was kind of struggling with. Like, I did feel kind of bad where I was like, why do I genuinely like not like really care too much to like learn
Yeah.
about, like, why do I not care about learning Tagalog? Like, what is up with this? Like, is something wrong with me? So that was actually something I did struggle with a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I realized though, like, which is kind of like how I was able to like reflect on this. Where I'm like, oh, you know what? I think like part of it is because this was kind of suppressed a little bit. Again, not their fault. Like, I completely
Yeah.
understand why they did it, but I do think that that does have an impact on why, like, at least compared to a lot of my friends, and then like definitely my brother, like, I just genuinely am like not as interested in it. But I think as I'm getting older though, and like, as I like meet more people, and as especially when I went to college, I think that really like improved a lot. Where I started getting at least a little bit more of an interest, and I have noticed though that has changed like over time, just because I think I'm like now meeting more Filipino people, and I'm meeting more like now when I'm traveling, like like I've gone to the Philippines like a few more times now, like as I've been
Hmm.
older, and it's been completely different. Where now I'm like, oh, like I actually really want to like I really want to come back here. And to do that, I actually think I need to understand this like a lot more.
Hmm.
So I do think that slowly, yeah, I have been like really wanting to expose myself more naturally, and it's like a genuine thing.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
for sure, though, like it has been like a process, and like it's
Yeah.
been something that I've been like personally bothered with, that I'm so like I'm not that interested in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
No, that makes sense, and I guess that I can see how that would cause a little bit of a complex. I feel like I had more identity issues than you did growing up. Well, people would ask me like, "What are you?" And I was always like, as a kid, like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you know, and so, uh, but I guess we were so being in Miami where there are a lot of Caribbeans and Filipinos and
yeah,
Hispanics and everything there, um, being, I guess, different wasn't that I don't know, it's kind of a norm
yeah, yeah,
a little bit. So it's like, but I like if I didn't grow up in that culture or where I was exposed to all this stuff, would I maybe struggle with the same thing, or maybe I struggle with it, but in a different way as like, well, why does um why do people ask me this? Because people go off how you look and blah, blah, blah,
yeah.
and stuff. And so, man, that's really interesting. I mean, okay, so you kind of one question we usually like to ask too is like, have you been to the Philippines? It sounds like you have. Did you go a lot like when you were younger, kind of throughout your life? Like, how's that been?
Yeah. Yeah, we went sporadically, like, when we were younger, I think just to, like, visit grandparents,
Okay.
very, very sporadically, like, maybe, like, once every, like, 6 to 7 years or something. So I think
Yeah.
I think I've gone back more to the Philippines in the last, like, 2 years, which has been, like, I think 3 or 4 times,
Oh, wow. Okay.
versus, like, the before. I've been there, like, maybe like 10 or 15 times in total.
Okay.
But each time has been very different. Like as I've gotten older, especially like definitely as I've gotten older, I've like had a completely different experience now, and
Mhm.
I'm a little bit more cognizant about like the differences. Like I actually want to like at least now I'm old enough to go kind of explore and like see things and
Mhm.
like have a completely different experience rather than when I was like 5. Um,
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
I have been a couple times. It's been very different every single time, but yeah, it's something that is, I mean, it is really expensive. So it's like really hard to
Yeah.
kind of go back, but if I could, I do want to, that is something I do want to do more,
Yeah.
more often.
That's cool. Do you have, like yeah? Because we used to when we used to travel, it'd be like, go visit grandma and grandpa, like, I don't know, nowadays, we don't have so many living family there anymore, but, like, when you did go to visit your grandparents, were you even able to communicate with them? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
I shockingly was,
Okay, okay.
I will say, I think it got a little harder as I got older, because they like started
Yeah.
declining in age, but then also, I don't know what it was, but I think like when you're younger and you're like more like a kid, it's just for some reason easier to communicate with people. But
Yep.
then like just as you get older, awkwardness like starts happening
Yeah.
harder. But yeah, it's really weird, but I don't remember any of the conversation that well. But I do remember when I was way younger,
Yeah.
really communicating with them a lot. And then as I got older, it was a lot harder. But I do think
Sure.
it was partly like an age thing. Like they just had a harder time kind of communicating.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, there. I think when we did visit, like we were pretty close, and then we also did do a lot of phone calls too,
Okay.
which again got a lot tougher like as
Mhm.
time went on. But yeah, we I was able to actually like understand
Oh, that's great.
my grandparents. So they're not with us anymore. That the one
Yeah.
in the Philippines, but yeah, they're like yeah. Looking back on it, yeah, we it is kind of weird. Like we did actually communicate a lot, which this is like the first time I'm like thinking about that.
Well, that's something that we hear a lot about when we talk to guests who maybe do speak their
Mhm.
parents' native language. Is that they can talk to their grandparents and all that. But I know since you said you don't speak Tagalog, and I don't, and I know like when you're younger, it's easier for you to pick up languages. So I really think it's great when parents can
Yeah,
teach their kids. But and I don't actually know like how difficult it is to speak Tagalog. Like I don't it's not. I
yeah.
don't know. Like I know tried to learn Spanish and stuff like that, but I'm actually not sure. I haven't heard much Tagalog, even though I know that is the main language, but I don't know how hard it is to.
I think it's similar. It's actually like pretty similar to Spanish. Like there's so many words
Mm,
that cross over because like I think
okay.
Spain colonized. So like
Yeah. Yeah.
basura is trash. It's trash. Like for
Okay.
and like I think so I can't really like speak it, but
You
I
can
think
understand
I
it better.
kind of understand like
Yeah.
maybe like 50-60%. And then
Oh, that's
obviously
pretty good.
they love to sprinkle in like some English in there, so it makes it so much weird. Like if there's one English word and like a bunch of Tagalog, I'm like, okay, I think I know what's going on in
Yeah.
this. Even when went back to the Philippines recently, like I was just there with my dad just for like a like I just tagged along, like he went for like for a reunion work thing, and
Hmm.
we hung out with some of his high school friends. They only spoke Tagalog the entire time. I was just sitting there, but I could fully understand like what they were talking
Wow.
about for
Mm.
some reasons. I was kind of surprised, but
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I did like pick up a bunch of stuff. It also is kind of similar to Spanish in some ways, so I feel like it's
Okay.
one of the easier languages, especially if you kind of know Spanish already. To
Okay. That's really cool. I just didn't know if they like you know spoke it to you. Well, I guess no, you would know it if they spoke it to you in the house. But I was like
yeah,
maybe hearing your parents just
I think so. I
innately
think it
kind
was
of yeah, yeah.
yes, yeah, for
You
sure.
kind of just naturally absorb it and yeah, understanding is easier than having to respond back. But
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah.
that's really cool. No, I mean, so when you did visit, I don't know if you had like cousins and stuff over there, like to the Philippines, but like, did you find that like, did your family ever be like, oh, like make fun of you for being Americanized or like,
Shockingly, honestly, shockingly, not really. To be honest, like most of them were just really like fascinated,
hmm,
and yeah, there was I don't think there was ever a single there was no negative connotation with it at all.
okay,
And like so it was never a thing where it felt weird. And then vice versa too. It was also never like a at least from my perspective, but like for sure just in all the interactions I had with cousins or anything, we were both just genuinely fascinated. And I remember we would always like compare things. So and
hmm.
the big thing we would honestly compare was like the price of things because have a video game and then I would have a video game and they'd be like I don't know why, but for some reason there were just some things that were just some things were substantially cheaper in the Philippines and then
Hmm.
some things were just super expensive and it definitely had to do with like how it was being imported. But
Hmm.
I just remember like some video games, like that was the big thing we were comparing. We'd compare like they'd be like, oh, this thing cost me I got this video game like this Game Boy Advance costs like $20. And then I'd be like, this was like $300. We were just so fascinated by like the differences and
Hmm.
um but it was always just a genuine fascination. Like it wasn't
That's
really
cool.
like a negative comparison or anything.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. Okay, did you find okay, so you mentioned a little while ago that like you were like, "Oh, when I was applying for college applications, my dad was like, well, I had to apply for like a
Back
thousand
in
this
my
day."
day.
Yeah,
Like, so that's a common trope we see with like or not Filipino, sorry, immigrant parents is like, well, you have it easy. Look at what I had. Like, did you? Okay, so was that a common theme that you experienced, or like,
yeah.
not
I think yeah, like directly, honestly, I think, and they could have done this so much more, but my parents rarely played that card where they direct.
really? Okay,
Yeah, like that was
that's
that's
great.
why I think it stuck out so hard to me because like rarely ever pulls it out. But I just kind of picked up on it a lot of the times, like just subconsciously, where like I would be doing something and then, or they would tell a story or something. And again, they weren't doing it to kind of tell us, but they would just like, they would be like reminiscing or something and be like, oh, we had to go do this. And
Mhm.
then I'd be like, oh my God, like that sounds horrible. like, like, like what I'm doing is so much easier. And so I think they dropped some of those things, not on purpose, but I kind of
Mhm.
picked it up, but they rarely actually directly told me like this is easy because I used to do this. It was more of I kind of just picked, and my brother's the same way too. I think we all
Mhm.
naturally picked it up because we just like subconsciously I think we're
Mhm.
like thinking to ourselves like, okay, how did they like come to the US? Like that makes no sense, especially like
Yeah.
as like now we're hearing about like how hard it is to immigrate in, and we're hearing all these things like as
Yeah.
we're getting older, we're like putting the pieces together like how is this possible? Or like, okay, getting into med school and doing this is just hard in general. Like how did you
Right.
do it like from the Philippines, no internet, no nothing, like what is going on here? So I think as we started getting older and having our own experiences, we just naturally started comparing it to theirs. So they didn't even have to do any of that for us. Like
Yeah.
just did it internally. And I think we all three of us genuinely kind of felt like kind of bad. And like we started comparing our experiences there without them saying anything. I think the fact they didn't say anything directly, just like maybe once or twice have they pulled that card. I think since they didn't, it kind of hit us a little harder because
Mm.
since we came to the realization ourselves, then like even for example, like when I told my brother like hey, like you shouldn't feel that like this is I know they it kind of feels like they purposely didn't teach us Tagalog or they purposely suppress this. But like, okay, put yourself in their shoes because
Mhm.
he's going to med school as well too. But then when I explained to him like, okay, like what these interviews are like, like the people you have to talk to, don't because he always complains to me about how like he feels like he has to kind of play this game and like he just wants to
Mm.
help people. He just wants to be a doctor, but he hates how he has to kind of play into the system to be able to
Okay.
do what he needs. And I was like, okay, now imagine that but everyone's super racist. Or imagine
Yeah.
all this stuff. And I think when he hears that stuff, I think just because he's coming to this conclusion and he's not hearing it from my parents, it just hits a
Mhm.
little harder because then I think he's like, oh man, they didn't even like they had every right to say that to him, but they
Mhm.
chose not to. And I think it just like just the those stories and how it applies to us just I think we absorbed it a little differently since they didn't do that. But I do know I have a
Mhm.
lot of friends who like they say their parents play that card like every day. And I feel like sometimes though, if they do that, it might wear off a little bit in
Mhm, mhm.
times. But in our
Yeah.
case, it was so rare. Like we just
Wow.
came to the conclusion ourselves, to be honest.
That's so
Mm.
interesting.
See, it's
Yeah.
more effective that
I
way.
think it is too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I
when I have kids, I'm just
well,
not. I'm gonna like be very silent and then subtly drop things like in the background, like see if they pick it up, so they feel bad.
wow. Yeah, our parents, my mom especially, definitely would
Oh,
play.
really?
Oh, yeah.
I
Oh my
still does. I
gosh.
mean, I
Oh
should
my
say.
gosh, yeah.
Well, I describe it as this like innate indebtedness that you have, especially
Mhm.
when you have parents coming from like a developing country
Yeah,
like Jamaica and the Philippines, like
yeah, yeah,
and stuff. Just knowing what they had to go through, and when you go there and visit, Jamaica's a very poor country and all this, and like seeing stuff. Sometimes my mom's like, "See where we grew up," and I'm like, "Man, okay." I really need to not like
yeah,
complain
yeah,
about my
yeah,
first
yeah,
world problems.
yeah.
But you also don't want to be like hit over the head with it every time because then you feel
Yeah.
like, I know, I'm so
'Cause then
sorry.
it can make you feel like you don't have any problems at all. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, just because I grew up in, like, a country that has more resources, it doesn't mean that, like, there's
Yeah,
no
yeah,
problems anymore at all, like,
That would be
yeah.
great, but
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, yeah, 100%.
Well, another, like, topic that we talk about a lot on this podcast is how narrow the view is for many immigrant parents of what is a good profession.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, and you mentioned that both of your parents were in the medical field, your brother is going into the medical field as well. I think you're in a good field, but I know sometimes immigrant parents don't really understand the tech industry and if that's a good thing to be in. So, how did your parents feel about you kind of going in this
Yeah, and it sounds like
route?
you're kinda it's your own company, right? Like Aloha so, like, how did they feel about you kind of taking more of an entrepreneurial route even though it is in the tech space?
yeah. It was so interesting to get to this point because I think like, originally I actually was going to go into medicine. So in high school,
Mm,
I was dead set to go to med school, be a doctor. Just because I think that was also the only thing I knew too, just seeing my parents. I was like, okay, this is it. Like also at the time, like there was really no tech. Like it just was not a thing.
mm,
I think like maybe the internet, like I do distinctly remember Wi-Fi didn't really happen until around my high school. So like everything was still wired. Like there really was no internet or anything that, or just like, yeah, people, tech jobs were not a thing. Like coding was like really not a thing. Like none of this was a thing. So medicine was the only thing I kind of had. So I was really dead set on doing this. And both my parents for sure pushed all, like me, and I have two other brothers, so they pushed all three of us like, she's definitely going to medicine. I think it's because that's all they knew too.
Mhm.
It wasn't until I think around like junior or senior year of high school
Mhm.
when I started taking the medicine so seriously that I started like going to these medical camps. And this was like my choice. Like I was like, hey, I kind of want to try this out. Like where there's some stuff in high school where you can go and shadow like during the summer and like they'll kind of expose you to medicine.
Mhm.
And I think I remember watching an eye surgery and I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. Like, I was like, okay, I'm not cut out for this. And then I remember talking to my dad too, and I told him like, okay, I really don't want to do this, but like, I'm gonna stick it out. And then I think he started questioning, like, okay, so like, why are you trying to do medicine? And I was like, oh, because it's really good money, it's very stable. And he was like, whoa, okay. It's like there's infinite other ways to make money. Like he's
Uh-huh.
like, why are you doing this? And he actually started kind of questioning um, my reasons for getting into it. And he was actually the one that kind of convinced me not to do medicine, which was
Mm.
surprising. Which also I don't think I really fully appreciated until I got like a lot older.
Uh-huh.
But I think it was also because he genuinely loves it, and but he also knows how hard it is. So it's one of
Right.
those things where he was like, the world's definitely changed. You're super smart. Like if you wanted to make money some other way, or like you'll figure it out. He's like was confident that I would figure it out.
Mhm.
So he knew that it wasn't like a thing where I had to go into medicine to survive.
Mhm.
So I think that's why he also felt comfortable pushing me away from it. If I just genuinely I wasn't interested in it. He obviously wanted me to do medicine because I think he loves it. It'd be amazing if he had a son who also did it, which
Yeah.
he's getting with my youngest brother
Yeah.
right now. But it's because he genuinely does love it. But he basically talked me out of it because he was telling me like, he's like, no, you actually this is such a hard field, and like it is going to like grind at you for years and years and years, not even just the amount of work but just like the emotional trauma, like the stress, like everything. And
Mhm.
he said, if you don't love this, like you truly should not do it. And I think the minute he said that I was like, oh, okay, like yeah, then what am I doing? Like I definitely should. I was like, that sounds horrible, like why would I do this? And so I think once I got his like kind of his blessing, where he kind of
Mhm.
takes me away from
Mm.
that, that's when I started exploring other paths. And I still didn't understand tech. I still didn't know like that was an option. So when I went to school at Vanderbilt, I actually majored and studied economics and finance.
Okay.
So I studied econ because that was like the closest thing to business. And aside from medicine, I was like, hey, what else is there aside from medicine? Just business. Like I that was the only thing I knew
Uh-huh.
like that existed. I still didn't know what it meant, but I knew that if it's not, medicine, there's a business side of medicine, probably business. That's what I'll figure out. So
Uh-huh.
econ and finance were like the closest things to that. And luckily, both my parents were actually they were very supportive of me kind of going in there. But I think they were very supportive of it because they like I think they realized that I would probably be very miserable doing the medicine thing. And I think they were like, okay, we're definitely not going to push you towards that. And I think they were just happy that I picked something and had a path, and that's what I was going towards.
Yeah.
However, once I got to college, that's also, I think around, so I started going to college 2014, like 2013, 2014.
Mhm.
That's actually when Apple released Swift, the programming language. And I just so happened to try to pick it up while I was doing these classes. So like I started coding, I started getting into this, and I was like, this is kind of interesting.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's when the world of like, hey, maybe I can like do something in tech like became a thing.
Mm. Gotcha.
That's where they actually were like, no, like it makes sense. And I remember fast forward, and I've only worked at one other company because I started this company in college, Aloha, and I've
Oh,
actually
okay.
been doing it full time for like maybe like 8 or 9 years now. It's like been a long time, and I've been
Mhm.
doing this. But I did work at one company after college, and so I worked at Google for 1 year in New
Oh,
York,
cool.
and so really good. And
Oh, that's neat.
obviously, Google is like a very pristine company, especially with like college. But my parents were like so averse to me working there because, and I remember distinctly my mom. she totally is going to think I'm making this up, but she was point blank told me, how can you work at a website? And I was like, you don't understand. They're like $1 billion.
Yeah.
Need to go work with this company. But they were they I think because they were, that also made me realize they were very accepting of me going into business because they kind of understood that too, where they were like
Okay.
medicine business, but anything outside of that, that was really foreign to them, where they like didn't understand it. They're like, you're not going to survive. Like, we're
Mhm.
going to have to take care of you now or something.
Yeah.
Like, you're trying to work at a website that makes no sense. It wasn't until I think after when I started at Google, they started talking to some of their friends, and their friends were telling them like, "Oh, wait, your son's at Google? That's such a good company." And they were like, "Oh, is it really? Like, cool." And then I remember they called me, and I remember my dad was like, "Hey, we just like talked to some of our friends, and like apparently Google's really good. Great job." And I was like, yeah, I was like, I told you guys. And then same thing too. I think when I was like, hey, I'm gonna quit Google and start a company and do this full time, because I only worked at Google for a year and then made the decision I'm gonna go do this full time.
Mhm.
Same thing too. I think they were like very hesitant about that, but I think because of the Google thing, and I think they realized how insane of a, like, they were wrong on that. They were a little bit more open minded to,
Mhm.
okay, if he wants to quit this and do this, he can figure it out. But then I think once I, like, same situation, I think they told their friends like they were hesitant to say it, but they're like, oh, he quit Google and he's like starting a company. I think then when all of their friends were like, wait, that's crazy, like that's amazing. I think they were like, oh, this is great. Our son started. So basically, like it only worked when they got validation from like other people.
Okay. Yep.
But they were very the tech part. They were very against that. They didn't
Interesting.
understand it
Mhm.
until they heard from external people, like, "Oh, that was actually a good. That's a really good company. My son's trying to work there." Like, so yeah. But medicine and business. It was like medicine, business, and then tech. And
Okay.
now they're like wildly supportive. They're like super
Mhm.
happy that I'm doing all of this stuff. But I think they also knew though, like, even if I was going to try to do it, they probably couldn't stop me from doing it. They kind of realized, like, because I was kind of like pretty horrible in high school, where they basically were like, okay, we're done with you. Like, we're going to focus on your other brothers. And then I think that kind of made me realize, like, all right, now okay, I can't really rely on them here. Like, I have to do it. And I
Okay.
think they just saw like how I was able to kind of just do things without them, and they just don't worry about me as much, I think.
Yeah. Okay, when you say you're horrible, you mean, like, academically or just you're just like, "Chris is
Academically.
always doing his own thing, we
Yeah.
don't know." Okay.
No, I think like academically, but also that was in high school. I was really into, like, again, that was kind of when like Wi-Fi just started,
Mhm.
internet just kind of started, and I was super fascinated by it. But I was like very addicted, but not addicted as in like most kids are addicted to like social media or addicted to video games. But I was addicted to like just like understanding it, and like
Mm,
even in high school, I was kind of making like, without coding or anything, just like small websites and like
that's
things and
cool.
playing around. But they really did not like that because they thought it was a distraction from like
Mhm.
school and stuff. So they would always try to take it away. They would always try to find a way, but I would always find a way to around it. Like there was like this crazy thing where I like bought a phone that had like a browser just so I can continue to do like website stuff.
Okay.
But I like told them it was a calculator and like there were just so many little things, which in hindsight I'm like, I bet they like knew, but little, like, I think there was just, I was really like on paper really bad, and they kind of just gave up and they're like, all right, we're just gonna let you do whatever. You're gonna fail all your classes and it's fine. But then I think they saw when I kind of took that as a challenge. I'm like, okay, well, let's see. And then I
Yeah.
like got the greatest grades I've ever gotten the minute they like let up on me. And I think that's also why they trusted me with the whole medicine thing. When I said I'm not gonna do like I'm not really
Yeah.
into it, they were like, oh, you're good. Like, you'll figure this out. Then you want to do business? Great. I'm sure you'll succeed in it. And they kind of like let me do my own thing.
Gotcha. Oh, man, so many things. Okay, there are so many funny things. I think my favorite is definitely, "How are you gonna work at a website?"
Yeah.
Yes, I love that.
That I just love that. That is fantastic, and, I mean, you sound like an amazing student because to go to Vandy, which is,
Yeah.
great grade school, to go work at Google, goodness,
Right
like,
out of
yeah,
college,
yeah,
yeah.
like, that's
Did
nuts,
it.
okay, and making me feel old here. He was going into college when I'm graduating, so, oh, man, I'm like,
I know.
dude, like, I am like, "Oh, this guy is, like, legit. I mean, you document your stuff, so I have an idea of your, level of thing. But that's pretty mad respect, man. Mad
Yeah, I
respect.
appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I loved the part too where like you said how your parents didn't understand it until like other
Yeah.
people were like, "Oh no, actually this is great." Because that to me is also a very immigrant parent trait because
Yeah,
like I feel like immigrant parents really care about like what other
yeah,
immigrants think and like
And their
yeah,
children, how their children present
yes,
to.
exactly, and how they can present their children, like, that I think that's part of why they always want their kids I mean, aside from just your well-being, like, they want you to go into these professions so that they can then brag about you to their
yep,
friends, you
100%.
know?
Yeah.
Um, so that's I found that really funny that, like, it wasn't until their friends told them it was okay that they were like, "Oh, okay, fine, it's alright."
One 100%.
That's funny. Um, I think we'll
Trying to
go
think.
Oh.
Yeah, do you ever have anything else? No, I think we're good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think we'll go on to our sort of like light ending questions here, where we're just gonna ask you just like cultural
Okay.
things.
Yeah, yeah.
And we kind of referenced food a little bit earlier, so
Mhm.
let's start there. What are your favorite Filipino dishes?
Yeah, so, okay, by far my favorite thing, it's a dish called, sisig, which is honestly, I don't really know officially what's in it because I keep having it, like, in different ways, but
Okay.
either chicken or pork, but it's like this fried chicken pork rice dish, but I absolutely love it. It's like addicting, and I like it the way my mom makes it because
Mhm.
he also makes it in like a Filipino food is so unbelievably unhealthy. It's like there's no redeeming quality like to it. Like there's it's so bad for you, but it tastes so good. So she makes it in a lighter way where I don't feel horrible after eating like a ton of it. But
Mhm.
that sisig is like probably one of my favorites. There's another one called longanisa, which is it's like a breakfast kind of thing. It's like a
Okay.
sweet pork. It's like a sausage that looks way too red and like, but
Okay.
really sweet, really good. That one's also really good. So I used to eat that for breakfast all the time, and that was like my favorite thing. So half the time we would be eating like spam and rice and eggs for like breakfast, but then sometimes we'd have the longanisa, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is a good day. Like this is
Yeah.
really good." So those two are my favorite, and then there's like this dessert that I absolutely love called buko pandan, which is like a coconut, kind of like almost like ice cream coconut dessert in the Philippines. So I was so obsessed with it. That's like the one thing that I was like, I need to find the recipe and do it myself.
Yeah.
So when I moved away from home, um, and I think it was in like I think it was actually after college. I was like, I just had not had it in so long that it's the first Filipino dish where I was like, okay, I'm gonna go look up the recipe and go do this
Mhm.
myself because there's no restaurant within like 1,000 miles that is like selling this thing either, and I don't know when I'm gonna see my parents. So those are like the top three dishes, those two things, and
Nice.
the dessert.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
I could go find some
Okay.
like
So
after
even
this.
though like there weren't a ton of like Filipino restaurants and stuff in the area, it sounds like your mom cooked
Yeah,
a lot of Filipino food, you
she
would say, in the house? Yeah.
She did, she did. That was one thing, that was kind of in hindsight, was surprising to me. So they did wanna assimilate us, like, in a lot
Mhm.
of different areas, except for some reason, it was, like, all Filipino food.
Yeah.
What was also interesting was I remember me and my brothers would, like, we would really want her to, like, make, like, spaghetti or just, like, other things.
Yeah.
Like, not because we didn't like the Filipino food, but just because it was so rare that we were like, "Oh, like, let's like, can you
Yeah.
make this thing?" But she just, like, loved cooking Filipino food. So I will
Yeah.
say that is probably, like, one thing that they didn't really, like, compromise on.
Yeah.
And yeah, we didn't really have any, like, we didn't really, um although, like, we didn't really bring oh, no, we did. We actually did bring some of this food to school, actually, now that I think about
Uh-huh.
it, even, like, for lunches, and there really wasn't any, like there really wasn't anything that happened with that, though, because I know a lot of people, they get a
Mhm.
lot of, like, they get a lot of heat for, like, bringing, like, food to school or something, but
Mhm.
that did not happen with us. It was usually, like, people were, like, kinda interested in it and then
Hmm.
kinda were like, "Oh, okay, interesting," and then didn't wanna eat it, but, like,
Yeah.
really good most
Like,
of the
that's
time, but
cool.
yeah, we didn't really have any problems like that.
Wow, I'm like, this has been such an interesting interview because a lot of the things you've touched on is like, yep, that's been a thing somebody has talked about. This has been a
Yeah.
thing, and it's like, well, food. I guess keeping the food is not too surprising because I know that's a nice way for people to still
Yeah.
be tied into their culture even if they're in the states.
I think
Mhm.
that's also it's just like one of the hardest things to change. Like I feel like what you get so used to your own food, and then like
Mhm.
to go to a different place, and it's like, oh no, this is like they probably think American food is really bad. You know, like yeah.
Maybe, yeah. No,
Exactly.
but you talking about like, I was gonna ask actually if you took Filipino food to school because we had a guest who's from Korea and
Mm,
he would take kimchi
mm.
to school and his kids would be like, oh, this, and he's like said he would ask his mom like, can I just have like a hot dog and pizza? Because he didn't like that it was people were making fun of him about it.
Yeah, yeah,
So but that's good that people weren't doing that with you.
yeah.
Okay, so one food we hear about a lot in the Philippines is balut. And
Oh, yeah.
so have you ever tried it? And yeah, maybe well we described it before to
Yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
guests, but do you want to
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
know yeah.
I think it's like I know it's an egg, and I know it's like the fetus. I think like the chicken
Yeah.
fetus is like unborn, like
Yeah.
literal like embryo. And I don't know why people eat it. I think they said it like it gives you like energy, like life or something.
Mhm.
But I've never had it, but my brother has.
Uh-huh.
And I remember we went to a wedding where he like, or yeah, no, I think it was a wedding, and he like, it was just on their menu or something, and he was like, oh, I like want. He was like, oh, can I get this? And my parents were like, are you sure? Like, John, that's not like a. I don't think you're gonna like it. He's like, no, 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 I want it. And I think like he didn't know what it was, and then I think
Oh,
he like, but I think it was too late because he was
yeah.
just like, he was also like a very adventurous eater. Like he like
Uh-huh.
loved to try new things. But I remember he like ate it, and then like the entire venue like erupted and like we were so
Laughter.
happy like that he like
Oh.
did it. But he told me after he was like, that was horrible. Like that was like the worst thing. But he was just
Yeah.
like so like he couldn't like hide it. But I think my parents were just waiting for him to throw up because
Yeah.
it's like I don't think there's any like you apparently you have to douse it in vinegar and a bunch of things just to mask the taste because
Wow.
it does
Yeah.
not taste good. It's like usually it's just more of like a symbolism. I think that's my guess.
Yeah.
People
No,
eat it.
we hear about it. We actually interviewed another guest. She grew up in the Philippines. Her parents were missionaries actually.
Oh,
American
Yeah,
missionaries.
American
Yeah.
missionaries. So it's like white girl living in the
nice.
Philippines, and she was telling us about all that. I think her favorite foods were like kari kari or something. I can't remember
Correct,
what it was
correct. Yeah.
called. That yeah. And so no, we asked her about balut as well. We were just
Okay.
it's just a fun one that we like to.
Eat it. Has
Yeah.
she tried it?
Do you remember if she tried
I
it?
think she said she had. She grew up in like
A
a
village.
village. Like she was like nowhere near Manila and all that. And
Okay.
like
Yeah.
so yeah, so she like had actually tried all of these
Wow.
like
Okay. Okay.
foods. Yeah, she said she used to eat all kinds of like dead animals. I
Yeah.
don't know. Like yeah.
Yeah. A lot of
Yeah.
fish. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I grew up there, 100, it sounds like 100%, like everyone who grew up there has had it at least once.
mhm.
I have a feeling in my lifetime I will probably
It's
have
like a
it.
rite of passage, right? As a
Yeah, I
Filipino,
think
maybe
so.
you got to do
It is. I think it is for sure.
it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of our previous guest who grew up in the Philippines, like because she grew up kind of in a remote part of the Philippines, she didn't know about this, but I've heard so much about Jollibee
Oh,
as
yeah.
like
Yeah.
yeah, and like so yeah, just like can you explain kind of the like fascination with
Yeah.
it because I've heard a lot about it, but I don't know how it's
Yeah.
different from like the fast food here in the US.
Yeah. I think it's just like because it's the number one, like most well known fast food chain in the Philippines. And it's
Mm.
like, I'm trying to think of what the equivalent would be. It'd be like the equivalent of like, because there's also a mascot too. And so it's almost
Oh, okay.
like a phenomenon. It's not even like a brand anymore at this point. It's like there's like a bee, like a literal like bee mascot, and it's like I'm pretty sure the bee like also goes to like children's parties and like like everyone just loves this thing. It's definitely not like McDonald's because I mean I don't know who wants that clown.
Yeah.
Like he's not really a lovable mascot. I like don't know what an equivalent. You know, it'd be kind of like if McDonald's and the Duolingo owl like got together.
Oh,
Okay. Okay.
Where like you like love this thing. But
Yeah.
also I think it's because it was one of the few things that I think like went past the Philippines, which is why people love it.
Mm,
And like
I
that rarely
see.
happens with like Filipino food and like and just like cultural things. Like
Yeah.
they don't really break past the Philippines. So when it does, it's like a huge deal. So I
Yeah.
think when Jollibee was like in the US, like so many people drove and flew like so far because it was like such a big deal that it
Mm,
happened where like I know this happens a lot with like Korean food. There's like a lot of like
Yeah.
Korean fried chicken chains that are in the US. So it's very like it's very common. It's like not a crazy thing when you see that here, but
Right.
Filipinos, I think when they see something from the Philippines, it's so rare that they're like it's like a thing. So I think when it opened in Houston, everyone in Dallas that I like all the family members like would go down there just to
Mhm.
like literally just to go to the drive-through. So that was one of the things that I think we like when we did the 5 or 6 hour road trips, it was just to go through the drive-through of Jollibee, just to go get it. And we would like come back. And so now it's in Dallas, which is a huge deal. Like, so
Oh,
there's
cool.
three. And
Oh,
then I remember seeing it in New York. There's like one so close to Times Square, and I was so surprised, like that it was.
wow.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, I think that's why it's just like because if anything, like same thing too, like why I think Filipinos like love Bruno Mars or something because they're like, oh, he's half Filipino, like yeah, like we need to support our culture because it's
Yeah.
too like that. There's like a lot of singers who are like mainstream that like break
Mhm.
past the Philippines, so I think that's why
Gotcha.
people love it.
Okay.
That's I forgot that Bruno Mars was part
Oh
Filipino.
yeah, I forgot that too.
That's funny. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
Okay.
so like mixed.
there's so many of
Okay.
those like, little things. But yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, no, no. I was gonna say, well, that kind of brings us to another fun question we like to ask is like, do you have a favorite celebrity from the Philippines? That
I
you
think it might at the moment be Bruno Mars, even though he's half Filipino, but like
know?
he's
He
from the
counts. He
He
counts.
Philippines. I
counts,
think he's
yeah.
from I think he's from Brazil. So like I don't think
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he grew up in the Philippines, but
Mhm.
I think just like there's just so few that like people are like
Mhm.
oh, we're gonna latch on here. Like this is our person. I'm trying to think. There's anytime there's like a mainstream person that's like even tangentially Filipino, like all the Filipinos latch on. Even if they're like, oh, they're married to a Filipino person. They're like, oh, this person, we love
Yeah.
them. It's
Yeah.
like I don't know what it is. Like Filipinos just like anything remotely related to the Philippines, they get very happy. Anything.
Yeah. Well, I think you brought up a good point about how like kind of like how there's just like K-pop craze and all this stuff. Like it's not surprising to see like all these like I said, restaurants there
Yeah,
serving
yeah,
Korean food and stuff. But like, yeah, I guess that hasn't happened for like other countries per se. And then like we were watching, we're big into tennis, and so I'm watching like Miami Open right now. And there's a tennis player like Iyala, what's her
Yeah,
name?
I think her name's Alexandra, yeah, and
Alexandra
her last
Iyala,
name's
and like
Eala.
yeah, and she's like I heard she's like a star right now in the
okay,
Philippines.
yeah, I know. Okay,
Yeah, and so like she's just kind of like 19-year-old up and
wow.
coming. She's like first Filipino person to do it, and I was like, oh, maybe that's what I just kind of thought of that as you were saying it. It's like even though she's young and up and coming,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
everyone's like
100.
celebrating.
Yeah, you know what? I'm pretty sure I'll probably hear about her very soon.
Yeah.
I remember
Oh yeah.
there was this Filipino powerlifting woman who was in the Olympics and won.
Yes, I heard
Oh
about
yeah.
her.
I
Mhm.
remember people were like, I think the rise in the number of women who started powerlifting immediately after the Philippines, like everyone just became an expert at powerlifting that day.
That's hilarious.
We're so happy, like when they saw like one person, just because it's so rare.
Yeah,
So
I
it's like,
gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I remember actually I don't know if you remember this, Alyssa, but we were with Alyssa's Filipino friends one time when a Filipino woman won like Miss
Mm-hmm.
World or Miss Universe or
Oh, okay.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they were like so proud.
yeah,
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 they were like yeah, so it's nice
yeah.
when like you get that
For
representation.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. It just happens so rarely. So like, well, I think like even it's also something interesting I've seen is that a lot of like I have some friends who are like, oh, like some people when they see other people that are the same race as them, like they sometimes don't like it. So like if
Mm.
like for example, I know some Koreans who like when they see like other Koreans, it could be a good or a bad thing where they're like they either like oh like they're probably bad like let's not talk to them. Filipinos, it's like if a Filipino sees another Filipino, they're just like oh we're family like this is
Uh-huh. Yeah.
they're like so happy. Or if you it's even to the point where again if you say like oh my friend is Filipino, they're like oh you're amazing like you're like I think you guys like look Filipino, so if you told anyone
That's hilarious. She
like
gets that a lot more than me.
really okay like they
Yeah.
close enough like you're Filipino now like we love you.
Well, like I said, I have one of my best friends still to this day is Filipino, and I've been to her house and celebrated birthday parties, and has been around her family, and it's like they are always very welcoming. I will say that, so it's very
Yeah,
very true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Yeah, no, and I do. That's the number. Well, I get Filipino a lot, or just some kind of Hispanic a lot.
Yeah.
Mm.
But like ever since I left my in Miami, people don't really see me as that. But then like ever since I've left Miami, that's like the number one thing people just like assume I'm Filipino. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
actually, I'm not.
Our mom is Chinese Jamaican. Actually, it's very Jamaicans are very mixed up with a lot of
yeah,
things.
yeah,
So it's some Asian
Yeah,
in there. It's just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's deep.
yeah,
It's deep in there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Making
Anyway,
making Chinese. Okay, that I can definitely see that. Like,
can you? Okay, most people are like, "What?"
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's understandable that people would like go to like they see the Asian, I think, and then so that's like naturally like where
yeah,
they just go, like, oh, maybe Filipino, but like because
yeah, yeah,
I don't expect people to think of Jamaican
yeah,
Chinese.
yeah,
Yeah, so
They think of like
it's
Bob Marley with dreads and
I
stuff.
yeah,
And
know,
when they think of
yeah,
Jamaicans,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
so.
yeah.
yeah.
But
All right. So our last question here is since you've been to the Philippines quite a few times actually, do you have like a happy place there, like your favorite place there when you go?
Yeah, I think I do like there's this one beach that I have not been back to for forever, but I do remember it's called Boracay. So that's like a beach area. And I know that it's like been closed for a long time. I think it's reopened now just because of all the like the hurricanes and the tsunamis and like the kind
mm,
of destroyed it a little bit. But I do remember that like just the entire time there when we went there, and I think I was maybe like, I don't know, 9 or 10 or something, but it just stuck out so vividly because I was like, there is literally no place on earth that I've been to like this. And I remember like visiting California, going to beaches, but I was like, this is just so different. Like it
mhm.
just does not feel like I'm even on the world right now. And so I always remember that. And I still haven't been back, but now that I heard it's reopened, I heard it's like 20 times more expensive now, but apparently like it's still exactly like just as nice, maybe even better because they like renovated a lot of things.
Mhm.
But that's for sure, I think, where I'm like, I bet if I went back, I'd probably still have the exact same feeling. I'm like
That's
pretty
awesome. That's so heartwarming.
Yeah, that's so nice.
Awesome. Well, this was a great conversation, Chris. This was a lot of fun. I always like to get to
great.
talk about the Philippines. Like I said, grew up around a lot of Filipinos, so I feel
Nice.
like I know a little bit more than maybe the average person maybe
That's
would. So
great.
it's
You know.
always fun to talk about this topic. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We had a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. Really, really appreciate it.